An A.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Morris. I'm the Transportation Director here at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Also the Staff Director to the Regional Transportation Council. The Regional Transportation Council welcomes you to this public meeting. We met yesterday, had great conversation with you on the status of a whole host of progress we've made in the phase one work. So we're meeting again with you this evening to maximize your ability to participate in the process. You are in the third round of public meetings that we held on the project. We have a great consultant team and great COG staff to make presentations today. We've had lots of public outreach in this arena. So we'll start off with Brendan, who will highlight progress on the report. We'll get through the presentation pretty quickly, and then we'll open it up and take comments, questions, concerns, thoughts you may have with regard to the information that you hear about today or any previous information you've heard on this exciting project. Brendan.
Thank you, Michael. As you said, my name is Brendan Wheeler. I'm with the Council of Governments as the Deputy Project Manager on this study. And during this presentation, we will cover many topics related to the study. These topics include a study overview, information on public and agency engagement efforts, an update on our analysis of alignments and technologies resulting in our phase one recommendations, information pertaining to next efforts, as well as an opportunity to provide comments about the project. The next section will provide an overview of the project objective, process, and work efforts. Primary study objective is to evaluate high-speed transportation technology options between downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth. This includes analyzing both alignment and transportation mode options between the two cities. This objective includes finding ways to connect the Dallas-Fort Worth region to other proposed high-performance passenger systems in Texas, such as the Texas-Oklahoma Passenger Rail Study, which generally follows the Interstate Highway 35 corridor, and the Dallas to Houston high-speed rail project as shown on the map to the right. Also, the project will investigate ways to enhance connection to the regional transportation systems, including automobile, bus, rail, bicycle, and pedestrian networks. The objective is to obtain federal environmental approval to design and implement the project. The stated objectives will be analyzed in the study area as shown in this map. This area is generally bounded by State Highway 121 and State Highway 183 to the north, Interstate Highway 35E to the east, downtown Fort Worth to the west, and US Highway 287 and State Highway 303 to the south. The Dallas-Fort Worth High-Speed Transportation Connection Study is divided into two phases. We are currently in phase one, which the purpose is to analyze all reasonable alternatives regarding alignment and travel technology. This first phase has also included research on existing and emerging high-speed transportation technologies. The second phase will advance recommendations. The second phase will advance recommendations on phase one through an engineering and environmental analysis as prescribed by the National Environmental Policy Act. The second phase will include conceptual and preliminary engineering tasks, as well as financial and project management plans, concluding with a decision by the federal government regarding project next steps. Phase one, the project team has used a three-level screening process to pare down the initial vast number of possible options to a select few. The process, as depicted on this graphic, began with identifying all reasonable alternatives. Next, the first level of evaluation for the alternatives determined whether or not the alternative actually met the project purpose and need. Of the initial 43 alignments and 5 technologies evaluated in level 1, 23 alignments and 4 technologies proceeded to the second level of evaluation. Level 2 screening evaluation focused on identifying any major flaws which may preclude the alternative from being built. Of these alternatives, 10 alignments and 3 technologies advanced to level 3, which involves a more detailed evaluation of these alternatives. The project team is currently completing this step, and we need your help. As we discuss the preliminary level 3 screening results, please take the time to review the results and provide your thoughts and comments. The information gathered will be very helpful as the project team makes recommendations for a limited number of alternatives to advance to phase 2 of the study. The initial 43 distinct alignments and corridors evaluated in the first level of screening were grouped into 5 families of options. These 5 families shown on this map are generally identified as the Trinity Railway Express alignments in purple, the Trinity River alignments in gold, the Interstate 30 alignments in dark blue, the State Highway 180 alignments, which are very near the existing Union Pacific Railroad alignment, in red, and the State Highway 303 alignments in light blue. After the first level of screening, the 23 alignments shown on this map were advanced into the second level of screening. The Trinity Railway Express, Trinity River, and State Highway 303 family of alignments were eliminated from further consideration. Alignments evaluated in level 2 belong to the Interstate Highway 30 and State Highway 180 family of alignments. After the major flaw evaluation of alignments in level 2, as well as consideration of stakeholder and public input, 10 alignments were advanced into the third level of screening as shown on this map. In this final level of screening, the project team performed a more detailed evaluation. Later in the presentation, we will share the detailed criteria used to screen these alternatives, along with the draft recommendations resulting from this analysis. I'll pause a moment for you to view this map. The initial 5 transportation modes or technologies considered for this study are graphically depicted on this slide. These initial modes of travel include conventional passenger rail trains, higher speed trains, which are faster than conventional but slower than high-speed trains, high-speed rail trains, which are the passenger trains proposed for the Dallas to Houston system, magnetic levitation, or maglev for short, train technology, and Hyperloop technology, which incorporates a passenger or cargo pod moving in a near vacuum tube. In addition, the project team considered other emerging high-speed transportation technologies. Conventional passenger rail was eliminated in level 1 screening, and higher speed trains, along with other emerging high-speed technologies, did not advance beyond level 2. Only high-speed rail, maglev, and Hyperloop technologies advanced to the third level of screening evaluation. We will share our draft recommendations on this travel technology later in this presentation. Now I'll hand it over to Rebecca for the public and engagement.
Thank you, Brendan. I'm Rebecca Hernandez with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth High-Speed Transportation Connection Study, there are many opportunities for the public and governmental agencies to review, comment, and participate in this study. There are various types of public and agency engagement strategies used in this study. To date, the project team has held well over 90 meetings and briefings with various partners, stakeholders, international technology experts, and interested parties. 2 series of public meetings have been held for this study, the first series being in September of 2020 and the second series in January 2021. Responses to questions and comments from previous public meetings, as well as responses to frequently asked questions, are available on the study website at nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS. Our engagement strategies have also included meetings with elected officials in the region. So far, 3 elected official meetings have been held, and on a monthly basis, the project team meets with the Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Railroad Administration to discuss the study progress. Frequent technical work group meetings comprised of city staff and transportation agencies within the study area have provided guidance to the study process and recommendations. Other engagement efforts include a technology forum and meetings with government resource agencies, transportation agencies, and community organizations. The project team has also released monthly newsletters since February 2021 to provide updates on study progress and future engagement opportunities. These newsletters also serve as a resource highlighting interesting aspects of the high-speed study. To sign up for these newsletters, visit the study website and click on the blue heading titled "Sign up to receive updates and meeting notices." Additionally, as part of the Level 3 effort, we're asking you to review the remaining Level 3 alignments and provide feedback at your own convenience by using an interactive online tool as shown in the graphic to the right. To access this online tool, again, visit the study website at nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS. Your feedback and input is very helpful to us. The project team also offers additional opportunities to learn more about the study. The team is available to provide study information at special events or to groups or organizations wanting to learn more about the study. Please contact me, Rebecca Hernandez, using the contact information provided here. Please, phase 1, draft recommendations by the end of the comment period, which is June 18th, 2021. And at the end of this presentation, we'll provide you with information on how to make your comments. And please continue to access the project website for study updates and future meeting information, again, at our website shown here. And I will hand it over to Chris for an analysis update.
I'm Chris Masters with HN. The next section will discuss aspects of the detailed analysis performed as part of the Level 3 screening evaluation. Preliminary design concepts for each alternative alignment were developed to inform the Level 3 screening process. Specific alignment locations and right-of-way widths will be developed in Phase 2 of this study, building upon the conceptual engineering already developed for each alignment. Additionally, environmental constraint maps were developed for the study area to help identify sensitive areas and potential impacts. A technology forum was held to educate the high-speed transportation industry about this project and to obtain information from industry experts to inform the high-speed technology screening and design for this study. The final recommendations developed from input received at the forum were reviewed by independent experts and applied to the technology screening process. As part of the Level 3 analysis, the project team considered the following opportunities for alignments along the Interstate Highway 30 corridor. Between downtown Fort Worth and Cooper Street in Arlington, the Texas Department of Transportation is getting ready to initiate the planning phase for the ultimate redesign of the highway infrastructure. This presents the opportunity for the high-speed transportation system to be designed in coordination with the highway design, possibly incorporating the high-speed transportation corridor within the footprint of the highway infrastructure as an integrated transportation corridor. Alternatively, the high-speed transportation system could be designed along the periphery of the interstate highway to minimize potential conflicts with the highway main lanes. For the section of Interstate Highway 30 between Cooper Street in Arlington and downtown Dallas, the highway main lanes and frontage road system have been substantially improved to the ultimate configuration. In this case, the high-speed system could also be designed along the periphery of the interstate highway to avoid the existing freeway infrastructure. Are there other opportunities that the team should be considering for this section? One such consideration is potentially replacing the managed lanes in the center of the highway with a high-speed transportation system. The project team is considering all of these options. We continue to work closely with the Texas Department of Transportation to refine the preliminary alignment concepts prior to starting the next level of preliminary design in Phase 2. To supplement the Level 3 alignment screening evaluation, the project team began looking at how each of these alignments could connect to the urban areas of downtown Fort Worth and downtown Dallas. These urban center connection concepts were developed independent of the Level 3 alignments because of the complex nature of dense existing and planned infrastructure surrounding each downtown station. As stated previously, the urban center connection concepts are independent of the alignment alternatives and can be adjusted to facilitate connection to any of the level 3 alternatives that are recommended for advancement into phase 2. We are seeking feedback on other ideas on ways to connect to the urban centers. Please share your thoughts with us. The project team has developed a list of pros and cons for the current connection options, which will be further defined during the next phase. These graphics show the preliminary urban center connection concepts for both downtown Fort Worth on the left and downtown Dallas on the right. Fort Worth Central Station, noted on the graphic, is the location identified in previous studies as a preferred location for high-speed transportation station. Each of the different colored lines represent connection options between this station and the level 3 alignments. An additional station location for consideration at the northeast corner of the intersection between Interstate Highways 30 and 35W are also shown that may provide a better connection to a future high-speed corridor headed south out of Fort Worth. The proposed high-speed rail station from the planned Houston to Dallas project is also shown in the graphic on the right. Preliminary concepts connecting the Dallas high-speed rail station to a Fort Worth to Dallas high-speed system are also shown in various colors. It is important to remember that these urban connection concepts are anticipated to either be on elevated structures or depressed below grade to avoid conflicts with the existing roadways and railroads. We could use your help in identifying additional options not shown or any concerns you may have with the options presented. I will pause to let you view this graphic for a few moments. In phase 2, the project team will evaluate the effects of these urban center connection options on existing and planned infrastructure and developments. We will also be looking at environmental considerations, including visual and noise impacts, as well as effects on project costs. Economic development opportunities around high-speed transportation stations will also be considered. The stations anticipated for this high-speed system are not the same as the canopy and platform footprints of passenger rail systems that we're familiar with locally. High-speed transportation stations are typically larger structures that serve a regional multimodal transportation hub for passengers from large population centers, similar to a regional airport. With many examples around the world of attracting high-density development, these stations are expected to have significant economic development impact potential. Examples of existing stations and planned concepts from around the world are shown here. The current concept for the DFW high-speed transportation connections projects includes 3 stations, 2 at each terminus, one in Dallas and one in Fort Worth, and the other in the vicinity of the corridor midpoint. Now, Ian will visit with us about recommendations.
Thank you, Chris. And good evening, everyone. I'm Ian Bryant with H&TB, and I'm the consultant project manager for our study. In this section, I'll discuss the level 3 screening criteria and resulting phase 1 recommendations. The next 2 slides show the phase 1 level 3 screening criteria used to evaluate the alternatives. The potential impacts to sensitive social, biological, or cultural areas were divided into 5 categories listed here. The description for each category is shown in the far right column of this table. These categories include considerations for potential displacements and impacts to wetlands, floodplains, parks, or historic resources. Potential community impacts were also considered through noise and visual categories. Additionally, evaluation criteria regarding the ability of the vertical profile alignment or profile to be used for different high-speed modes. I will pause for you to review the criteria and descriptions. The final three major criteria considered in level 3 are constructability, cost, and operations. Constructability or operability were separated into 8 different categories, including the need for additional right-of-way, impact to transportation systems, either positive or negative, technology maturity, and impacts during construction. The project team developed order of magnitude construction costs for this project for the purposes of comparing alternatives. Operations were also divided into categories. These categories included total travel time along with capability of technologies to accommodate steep grades and sharp curves, which gives flexibility in designing the system. Each category was assessed for the remaining alternatives. I'll pause again for you to review the criteria and descriptions. As a reminder, here's a map showing the alignments evaluated in the level 3 screening. The yellow boxes shown illustrate the downtown areas where the urban connection concepts previously shown are located. The limits of alignments evaluated in level 3 are Beach Street on the west and Beckley Avenue on the east. Based on the level 3 screening ratings for each alignment alternative, the 3 highest ranked alignments were along the Interstate Highway 30 corridor. These alignments had the fewest impacts to structures and parks, the lowest potential for noise and vibration impacts, and the least potential adverse impacts to existing transportation infrastructure. Because these alignments hugged or could be within the interstate highway for most of the distance between the two downtowns, they potentially required the least amount of additional right-of-way. With these results, the project team is recommending these Interstate Highway 30 alignments advance into phase 2 of the study. These recommended alignments are shown in the graphic on this slide. For a majority of the distance between Fort Worth and Dallas, these alignments follow the same path. From west to east, all 3 alignments follow Interstate Highway 30 from Beach Street into Arlington. At this point, the alignments diverge to find different ways to navigate past the highway interchanges of State Highway 360 and the President George Bush Turnpike. All 3 alignments converge once again in Grand Prairie, heading east along Interstate Highway 30 into the city of Dallas. The alignments leave the Interstate Highway corridor near Northampton Road to follow a path similar to the Union Pacific Railroad alignment as it approaches the Trinity River near Beckley Avenue. There's an opportunity for the alignment to be located on the north or south side of the Union Pacific Railroad in this location. I'll pause for a moment for you to review these draft alignment recommendations. For the transportation technologies or modes, the modes with the highest ratings were high-speed rail and Hyperloop. While high-speed rail ranked well across all technology maturity criteria, Hyperloop technology ranked well in the operational criteria, including fastest travel time. Of the 3 modes considered in this final screening level, maglev had the lowest ranking, due in part to its high construction costs compared to the other 2 technologies. Based on these results, the project team is recommending both high-speed rail and Hyperloop advance into phase 2. The next 3 slides provide further reasoning to include both high-speed rail and Hyperloop in the second phase of this study. The project team applied the Technology Readiness Levels, or TRL, evaluation standards from NASA to compare technologies and determine their relative maturity. This provides a basis to compare emerging technologies such as Hyperloop with proven technologies such as high-speed rail, which has been in operation for over 50 years in other parts of the world. The project team determined that Hyperloop technology is still in the developmental stage at a TRL of 6, with high-speed rail having several thousands of miles of track being at a TRL of 9 in the implementation category. As Hyperloop technology is advancing rapidly, the project team is recommending to advance both the proven technology of high-speed rail and the evolving Hyperloop technology into phase 2. This creates the opportunity for Hyperloop technology to continue to develop over the next 2 years of this study. This project will benefit from having either technology as an option once phase 2 is complete. Should Hyperloop technology not develop as quickly as expected, high-speed rail will still be a viable technology for the corridor. Based on current information, the construction costs for both technologies are similar. As seen on this slide, the type of infrastructure and right-of-way requirements for both high-speed rail and Hyperloop are similar and require vehicles to operate on a bridge structure to separate them from other roadways and railroads. Given these similarities, the project team anticipates minor differences between the alignment design, meaning the effect of advancing two technologies into phase 2 instead of just one technology is minor from a design perspective. The project team would appreciate your input and feedback on both the phase 1 draft alignment and technology recommendations. Now that you've seen the evaluation process and phase 1 draft recommendations, we would like to walk you through the next steps of this study. As Rebecca mentioned, we will accept public comments on the phase 1 draft recommendations through June 18th of 2021. The project team will continue coordinating with the Federal Transit Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, cities, transportation providers, and federal and state resource agencies. On July 8th, 2021, the project team anticipates requesting approval of the phase 1 recommendations by the Regional Transportation Council, pending input from the public and local stakeholders. Please be sure to contact us if you would like a presentation of this high-speed transportation connection study to your group or organization. We are targeting our outreach to community groups and the remaining level 3 screening alignment corridors. We also plan to hold in-person events this summer as safety protocols allow. Please stay tuned as details are finalized. In late summer or early fall of this year, we anticipate initiating phase 2 activities. During this phase, the environmental analysis and documentation will be conducted in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act. While continuing public and stakeholder outreach and engagement throughout phase 2, the project team will also be developing preliminary engineering as well as financial and project management plans. Here's a graphical representation of phase 2 activities and where they fall in relation to each other. After a class of action determination by our federal partners, which determines the type of documentation required for the environmental analysis, public meetings will be held. Phase 2 is expected to take 2 years and completed in the third quarter of 2023. And now I'll hand it over to Rebecca to kick off public comments.
Thank you, Ian. During this presentation, the project team has provided background on several elements of our phase 1 analysis. We sincerely appreciate your comments and feedback on any of these elements, especially our draft recommendations for advancement into phase 2. There are 2 primary methods to provide input during this comment period, which again is open through June 18th. Comments received prior to June 18th will be considered and a response will be provided. Comments received after June 18th may be considered but will not be considered part of the official project record. For those participating online now, comments can be entered electronically by clicking the Join the Podium and submitting your question or comment, which will then be read aloud. Electronic comments can also be entered into our public project website, and comments can also be submitted by mail to P.O. Box 5888, Arlington, Texas 76005. For more information or to sign up for project notices, please visit our project website. Again, the project team would like to thank you for your time and interest. Please provide your comments and opinions through the options provided. Your input is welcome and very valuable to the project's success. We will now be opening up the phone line for public comment or questions. For those on the phone, please press 0 to speak, and then we will request your city and zip code, and then you'll be placed in queue. And then you will still be able to hear the meeting while waiting in queue. And then for those who are listening online, we have opened up our online platform, so you do have access to type in your comments or questions. And again, if you need to access that right now, please visit nctcog.org DFW-HSTCS and follow the link for today's meeting. And as a reminder, if you would like to participate on the phone now, you can dial 855-756-7520, extension 72699 pound, and then press 0 if you wish to speak. And do we have any calls in queue on the phone? Okay, thank you.
We do have a few questions from the podium. Ken in Dallas asks, is it true the Dallas high-speed rail station will terminate in a parking lot 0.8 miles from the Union Station intermodal hub? Is it true all connections between high-speed rail with Amtrak, the TRE, the Oak Cliff streetcar, and DART's red and blue lines would involve rubber tire connections?
Let me, a lot of questions in there. The high-speed rail station coming from Houston to Dallas, which is outside our purview, stops just south and west of the Dallas Center, just south of Interstate 30. I'm not sure it's quite 0.8 miles, but it is just south of the current Union Station. Plans are underway to move Amtrak underway to the high-speed rail station. The streetcar is nearby. Discussions are underway to adjust the light rail system. New vision for Union Station is being considered. There's a major intermodal play, a major economic development play in and around the high-speed rail station. So as high-speed rail approaches downtown, we're really pleased that high-speed rail from Houston is that close to downtown. But at some point, it's more cost-effective to bring the other modes of transportation to the high-speed rail station, as indicated earlier by pictures of these high-speed rail stations in other international communities. In our study, even though we have independent utility, meaning our study can stand alone without a high-speed rail investment to Houston and or from Fort Worth to Austin, San Antonio, Laredo, our goal is to get into that same station at that same location, either with a one-seat ride. The train from Houston continues to Fort Worth and you don't have to get off if you wish to go to Fort Worth, or a cross-platform transfer at that particular location. Do you wish, Chris, to add to that? You've been working on that particular interface to get our alignment into that particular location.
I would just add that more design is necessary on both of the facilities, both the high-speed rail station and this station concept, or the connection concept, before more intentional work can be placed into the multimodal connection routing. So that'll be a part of the work as the concepts advance.
And I think we should record, the comment to be, it sure would be nice if what we're doing maximizes the work that's coming in from Houston, and both high-speed railroads need to maximize the seamlessness of the high-speed rail station to the other transportation modes within it. And I know that work, I was in a meeting earlier, that work is going on the Dallas to Houston phase right now, and then obviously we can take advantage of that in our effort as well. I appreciate the question.
The next question comes from Larry in Dalworthington Gardens. Will the raw category scores for each option from the current phase be made available to the public?
Well, thank you for that question. Obviously, this evening, with the limited time that we have, we're just providing summary information. However, we are putting together technical memorandums for each of the levels of screening, and that will provide more information on the actual analysis and the details that are included there. So once those tech memos are completed, those will be available to the public and will be posted on our project website.
So what you have, Ian, is a transparent process of analytical scores with the addition of a different criteria on how different routes and options and technologies were dropped off along the way. So you can actually follow it like a baseball game through the process.
Correct.
The next question is from Jocelyn in Arlington. If the alignment along Interstate 30 is selected, especially in the narrow as to turnpike right-of-way west of Fielder, how and where would the rail be placed and operated while maintaining the capacity of the highway?
Our team is in close coordination with TxDOT. And in TxDOT, as we discussed, has established the configuration of I-30 to the east and to the west. There's the opportunity to redesign both the highway and incorporate the high-speed transportation system concurrently. So we don't have a specific answer for you yet, but it is a work in progress that will be coordinated. We'll work with TxDOT for them to identify what is important for them with the highway infrastructure both today and in the future. And we'll be able to identify what's important for this infrastructure both today and in the future, and work together to create a solution that works.
Yeah, so I think if I'm reading in a little bit to the person's question, if the right of way is tight, we have one option where we don't touch the existing freeway lanes. So your location of your columns are, where is there space in that particular section? You're probably on the outside of the freeway at that particular location. But we have this other option where we may be able, in the area west of Cooper on the older part, which is where Fielder is, do we create an opportunity of potentially moving the high-speed rail to an at-grade location, or maybe moving it to the center where the freeway is, and the center actually moves out? Now, what we don't know is, does that create value added? Does that make it better or worse for the residential areas along Interstate 30 with regard to having the high-speed rail on the outside, or potentially having the high-speed rail on the inside, yet the roadway may be more on the outside? But we don't have the answers today. The purpose is to take those two options and to continue to study those at a greater engineering detail, and then determining those impacts on, say, noise or proximity to residential areas. That's all part of the plan to get into the phase 2 and to get incremental work. So I read into the question that corridor does get tight in the Fielder area, and the reason we have two options there is to trigger that sensitivity. Is there a way we can mitigate? What are the impacts, and if they're significant, is there a way we can mitigate it between the two options? Amanda?
Yes, we have a caller. We have Ken Dublay from Dallas. Let me open the phone line for you, Ken.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. A pivotal moment in the history of Dallas transportation was the Kessler Plan of 1918. Not much of it ever made reality, except say for one thing, which is the railroad stations, which were kind of privately operated at the time. Under the Kessler Plan, they closed them all and brought them into one single station, united them all, and so naturally they called that Union Station because it was a uniting of all of these railroads. And this is one of the things that made Dallas a railway hub and made us a great city. And what I see here is kind of a right amendment situation all over again, where, as you recall, we had a situation of a large regional airport being built and another carrier wishing to use the second airport. And so we were kind of operating out of two airports, and we still are. But this seems to be Wright Amendment all over again, because you're going to have an intermodal hub which already exists, which is Union Station. This is where Amtrak, the TRV, the Oak Cliff Station, and DART's red and blue lines all come together. It's located across from a giganormous field where there was once a sports arena. Now there's nothing but grass. And yet we're going to build a second station 0.8 of a mile south and locate, from what I can tell in your maps, bypass the intermodal station and locate the high-speed rail in the middle of a parking lot, which is on the opposite side of the freeway from the intermodal station at Union and downtown. So my question is, do you know of any other city anywhere in the world where they have built a high-speed rail station which terminated in a parking lot and does not connect with the regional rail? Because I've traveled throughout the world and I've never seen this before. Could you explain the rationale behind this?
So let's create a context for the Union Station. In fact, I had a meeting on the Union Station earlier today, unrelated to this project. This is Michael Morris responding. Union Station itself is not doing well. You can't even use the restrooms in Union Station on most days. That is a huge disappointment to this office. And unrelated to high-speed rail, there has to be improvements with regard to the historic commitment of what that building represents, and work that's now being done related to the convention center and the responsibility of the convention center in part of Union Station. We will explore what opportunities we can to revitalize that heart and spirit of that historic structure. The scale of Union Station is very small to the scale of what a new high-speed rail station does. If you look at the picture shown earlier in the public meeting and the scale of a high-speed rail station and the economic development around a high-speed rail station, the claim is you're going into an empty parking lot. You're not seeing the new central business district that's being built around that particular station. And obviously the same thing would occur in Fort Worth, wherever that station may be coming out of our particular study. So the linkages that two callers now have made are being coordinated with the current high-speed rail and the current high-speed investment from Houston to Dallas, regardless of whatever we do in this particular effort. Relocation of Amtrak to the new high-speed rail station, for example, is underway. Relocation of bus access, relocation of light rail access. At some point, it is cheaper to readjust the regional connections than to continue to advance the high-speed rail station. I don't even know how a high-speed rail station could interface with the current Union Station, given the proximity of the rail district / freight, the light rail system, as you indicated, and the regional rail system, which we hope to extend all the way over to Fair Park on the new rail district structure. So the interface the importance of Union Station is critical, but it's not doing great under current policy. The introduction of high-speed rail coming from Houston has all hands on deck with regard to those connections and the construction of a new central business district around that high-speed rail station. And then what our office is doing is trying to connect in the alignments that you see to that current high-speed rail station. The last thing we want to do is to build a second high-speed rail station and force a transfer between high-speed rail modes in downtown Dallas. So we have an agreement with Texas Central Partners on a one-seat ride. So you can go Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio without getting off a train, or go Fort Worth, Arlington, Dallas, Houston without getting off a train, if in fact the high-speed rail technology is chosen, or if Hyperloop technology is chosen, you would have a cross-platform connection. Any additional comments with
Yeah,
regard to that, that the consultant team or our staff would like to make?
I would just add that that corner of downtown Dallas that we're talking about, there's a lot of activities underway there. There's the convention center master plan that's underway. We're in coordination with the city of Dallas. The Trinity Park Conservancy is working on the park within the Trinity River floodplain, as well as connections along the levees. There's a lot of development planned in that area as well.
The I30 freeway is being reconstructed.
Absolutely. So there is definitely an understanding among all of these entities that continued coordination is going to be needed, and an understanding that there's serious opportunity here as well to really create something special. And it not just with high-speed rail or the existing rail systems coming into Union Station, but also with bicycle and pedestrian and every other mode you can think of coming into that area. And as Michael stated, these high-speed rail stations really are destinations in and of themselves, have multiple land uses integrated within them. And so I think there's a real opportunity here to make sure that those historic connections happen with Union Station. And if it ends up being a repurpose, or if it continues to serve some of the existing rail or other activities, there's a really good opportunity here, and we're working with all of these entities to try to figure out a plan on how they all interface.
And the
Well, I
caller,
was going to say
if
one
you
thing
want a
there.
clarification, you're more than welcome to go ahead and continue. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to make a clarification here. They're actually, well, I was being very specific in mentioning the Reunion Arena site, which of course is enormous, just a huge grassy field, and the tracks pass right through it. There actually is in place now an underground passageway that goes from the existing Union Station to this enormous grassy field. I know because I walked there during to get to the Bruce Springsteen concert, and there were plenty of signs telling me not to do it, and you're correct about the management of Union now, and the city should do something there, eminent domain or whatever. But I disregarded all of the signs, and in fact walked underground all the way from Union to the big field there, which is where the Reunion Station was. And this seems like the perfect place for a multimodal station here, where people could go on foot, have cross-platform transfer, or at least underground passageway transfer from the TRV, the red line, the blue line, the Oak Cliff streetcar, Amtrak, and go under the passageway to this big field, which would be the perfect place to have this. You wouldn't have to redo all of these connections because all of the connections are in place now. It would just be a matter of bringing the station 0.8 of a mile farther north.
Yeah, so technically, I got to have some clarification here. That station is being determined by the Houston to Dallas effort. So we in our study, and I got to clarify because I have a federal responsibility to our study. We in our study are not locating that particular station. That station is being located from the Houston to Dallas effort. Our goal is to interface seamlessly to wherever that station is going to be. And we have to have independent utility, meaning we have to be able to get to a station if that station is never built between Houston, that system is never built between Houston and Dallas. I also think you have not seen the visuals that Dallas is developing in their second, third, and fourth phase of the redevelopment around that high-speed rail station. that is coming from Dallas to Houston. You're arguing a vacant field and a great purpose for a high-speed rail station. You got to look at the great high-speed rail station that's planned and the great purpose for that land that isn't going to be a high-speed rail station. So if we can get your information, or you can email us on the information that Rebecca gave you, I would like to get you more details with regard to the decisions that are being made in the Dallas to Houston high-speed rail investment and the land around that high-speed rail station. So you have the latest visuals with regard to how that is being interfaced. In our study, we got to get to that same location because we're not going to trigger a non-seamless connection of our high-speed rail investment to that high-speed rail investment. I hope that answers your question. Any other callers, Amanda? Any other?
Yes, our next question from the podium is from Danielle Podium, Fort Worth. Will this project in both phases utilize the TUCP program? And will the participation goals be participated in an IFB?
Chris.
The TUCP, for clarification, is the Texas Unified Certification Program, and that certifies businesses for federal disadvantaged enterprise programs. So the answer currently is even the work that's being done now, it has goals that are established and met for the work that the development team are performing. And even though we do not know the entity that will be implementing the actual final design of the project, I could say historically, all of the programs in the North Texas area involving rail and transit have included goals in the past. So it's very reasonable to assume that they will have strong goals for that type of support.
So in our office, hired you with strong goals. My memory is you're 30-something% DBE subcontractors in your
That is
project?
correct.
Yeah. And if you've monitored our work, you will see similar high numbers, as Chris is indicating, in the transit field, because the supply of DBE contractors in the transit field is telling us we should be pulling that particular amount. You hire an IT cybersecurity consultant, the supply of DBE contractors is less, and therefore in that case we would have most likely a less commitment. A project like this, we're not getting too far over our skis, but if there are federal funds to build our project, then obviously federal requirements are going to hold. Our office has strong commitments with regard to those commitments. If a private sector company builds it, it's mostly on public sector land. So I'm pretty sure the public sector would be arguing strong commitments of these hub and DBE contractors associated with those investments as well. But we got a high number on the work to date, and I don't know why we wouldn't continue to have a high number moving forward.
Our next question is from Chris in Arlington. How much will environmental concerns crossing the Trinity floodplain potentially complicate or lengthen the process?
So maybe we have to go over those alignments first and then talk about those criteria.
Yes, that's correct. So you point out a obviously key concern from an environmental perspective, crossing both the Trinity River on the east side as well as the west side going into both downtowns. We have met with and are continuing to meet with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So we've presented to them previously updates on where we are, received information from them as well, and we're actually meeting with them again next week to review all of this information with them in detail and talk through it as well. We do have, obviously, as you saw through the urban connections, lots of options for how we would potentially make our way into those urban cores. And so as we move forward and we receive input from you as well as other stakeholders, the Army Corps of Engineers will obviously be key in continuing to discuss these options with them as well and get their input on what makes the most sense from a Trinity floodplain perspective.
And in the Arlington area, you eliminated the alternatives that were in the Trinity corridor, they got either eliminated or deleted between phase 1 and phase 2, or between phase 2 and phase 3. So you do not have any, in the mid-cities area, you have no high-speed rail alignments in the Trinity flood, either valley storage or on the river itself, just as it crosses in downtown Dallas and Fort Worth.
That's correct, just into the 2 urban areas.
Chris, you want to add?
Yeah, and when possible, when we design the final concept for the infrastructure, we will try to take advantage of existing infrastructure as well. If there's an alignment that makes sense to parallel an existing bridge structure, something already crossing a flood area, then we'll try to mimic as best as possible where the columns are and such. So it introduces minimal impact beyond what already exists today. That won't always be the case, but whenever we can do that, we will try to take advantage of it.
So for example, going into Dallas, you may be next to a UP railroad bridge. That railroad bridge has to be replaced anyway. Railroad bridge will be replaced. So we may be working with UP to build anyway, or a high-speed rail structure / parallel UP structure where you can line up all the columns, work with the Corps of Engineers with regard to that. You wouldn't necessarily, if the bridge is going to be replaced at the same time, you wouldn't be constrained by those columns. You actually can help facilitate a 404 or 408 permit with regard to partnering. And I know you're in discussions with UP with regard to that opportunity. That would be an example of working next to an existing structure and actually creating maybe a win-win out of the situation. I hope that answers the caller's question.
The next question is from Kate in Fort Worth. How do I get more detail about the remaining potential Interstate 30 alignments? I would like to see the surrounding areas that may be affected.
So there's some information on our project website with some general maps about the alignment, and they're general now on purpose. We've done some low level of design for comparative analysis between all the alignments during our screening process, but there's a lot of work to do to actually get to the point where we have viable alignments. So anything that we do have today is extremely preliminary. As we've mentioned, a lot of coordination with TxDOT and other stakeholders is necessary to get us to the point of having an alignment that is potentially viable. So we do have some information, but that alignment that you may see is just very, very conceptual, a starting place for a lot of further discussion.
And everything we have, the public's welcome to have. It's just we're at the phase of eliminating options. We're at 1 or 2% design. We got to get to 30% design to really know exactly the best place. So we're trying to eliminate options to not have to design 15 options to 30% design. And it leads us to within the corridor, yet to resolve how within the corridor. And you get some very interesting options to try to minimize impacts in the corridor, especially in the western side, where you may be rebuilding a freeway as part of the project or in advance of the project to help actually minimize the combined impact of both high-speed rail and the freeway. Now, on the eastern side of I-30, that's brand new. We're going to have to deal with placing columns on the existing, freeway system in the east, because that's just been, taxpayers just paid for that to be replaced.
So if you do view what's online and require or request more information, just let us know, contact us, and we'll be glad to contact you with some more information.
Thank you. Next question.
Yes, and this is the last question that we have in the podium right now. It is a longer question. It is from Johnny in Houston, and he asks, did you consider other high-speed rail technologies besides the Japanese Shinkansen? Also, it appears that great care has been taken to minimize land and property disruptions between Fort Worth and Dallas by staying near the highway. I realize Houston is out of your domain, yet Houston has been mentioned many times tonight as part of an integral part of the high-speed train system. Why didn't planners hug a highway between the two cities of Dallas and Houston in order to minimize environmental harm, social justice deficiencies, and flooding concerns?
I'll start by answering the question about the technology. Through our process, we did not evaluate the technology provided by any specific provider. So we did not evaluate the Shinkansen technology. We evaluated high-speed rail. Just as with Hyperloop, we didn't evaluate the technology from a very specific company, but the technology in general, conventional rail earlier in the process, maglev, and so forth. So there are different technology providers that each have different aspects of propulsion and electrification and so forth. We looked at the mode as a whole, not as any type of mode that is provided by a specific provider. So when we say high-speed rail has advanced as a recommended technology to the next phase of the project, it is not Shinkansen. It is actually high-speed rail itself.
So in the environmental process, you're looking at a family and a generic representation of the technology. And you may have a range of design of high-speed rail technologies that give you a range of maybe noise impacts or something that may occur. That would all be in the next environmental phase. Now, I probably confused people because what I said is we have a one-seat ride notion. So if in fact we get through an environmental clearance in phase 2, you would then have to, in the real world, determine who is the rail provider. At that phase, if in fact it's high-speed rail, you'd then be working on a business model to help fund your high-speed rail, of which you may be in conversations. If in fact high-speed rail is built between Houston and Dallas, you could be in conversations to extend that same service to minimize a transfer. So in theory, the public needs to understand you could have a high-speed rail technology that has a cross-platform transfer at that particular station, and it may not be the same technology that's from Dallas to Houston. We have to keep independence at this particular point. Our desire would not force transfers where we don't need them, but keeping to independent utility, we have to assume that that's a possibility as we do our work. With regard to I don't want to weigh too much into the environmental that's not ours between Dallas and Houston, but because we're at 32 miles and the speeds that we're dealing with, even though these transportation modes can go much faster, once these transportation modes go to their maximum speeds, the grades and tangents make it very hard for you to stay on any specific alignment, have it be an existing freight railroad or the existing Interstate 45. So I don't think they're drifting their alignments on purpose to be mean to people. They have to maximize their speeds to maximize their investment. So when you get up to the speeds of that particular technology, you pretty much are going in a straight line, and they went through their process and their environmental clearance to do the same thing we'll be doing in our next phase to minimize as best they can that particular system. In our particular case, we're blessed to have probably lower speeds because we're not getting up the whole way to those particular speeds, and therefore it's more likely for us to be able to stay within a particular public sector corridor. But it speeds two times what we're running. It's more difficult to do that. So I don't think they're being mean. It's the speed they wish to get to. And again, if the commenter wishes to get more information, we can get that information, Rebecca, and get them in the hands of the people that did that work. But again, as the caller indicated, that high-speed rail investment is not the one we're doing. And I very much understand the concern raised by the caller.
And we do have one more comment from Ken in Dallas. It seems to me that all of the proposed connections between the high-speed rail station in Cedars and the existing rail hub downtown rely on conceptual walkways that are unfunded and may not be built within the foreseeable future. The only sure thing is the parking lot.
I guess we may have to disagree on that. So I can't imagine a $20 billion investment from Dallas to Houston and and not making the appropriate connections to make sure people can get to and from that particular station. And the new downtown that's going to be built around that, and all those developers that are building all those buildings not interested in getting people from their buildings to the high-speed rail station. I don't know what all those pedestrian connections mean. But again, I think that's not our effort. That effort is proceeding. I hope that high-speed rail is built between Houston and Dallas. And in the meantime, we're going to try to build between Houston, make our connections to that same location. And then if we get to a phase 2 environmental, we'll be facing those same questions in our 2-year effort with regard to the seamless connections we'll be making. If those connections do not appear in the Houston to Dallas high-speed rail, we'll be facing those same questions on our effort. Yes, they're important. I can't imagine someone spending $20 billion in building a new downtown and not having the appropriate connections. Any other questions for us? Amanda? Anyone else? Any other closing comments any of the commenters, presenters wish to make on comments today?
I would just reiterate that we do request your input. There's some things that we presented tonight, some concepts. We really would like to hear if you have additional ideas on connections, on the impacts, things that we should consider. We have the time now to coordinate and collaborate before we enter into the next phase of the project. So please do contact us, share your thoughts, so we can take those into consideration.
And Rebecca, remind us how long the comment period is, because this isn't the only, yesterday and today are not the only times for them to give us comments.
Correct. The comment period is open through June 18th. And please visit the project website. We have some additional handouts and information on there. You can look at the slides from today and in both English and Spanish. And if you have anyone who wants to view this presentation that did not get a chance to, let them know about it. They can go online and view that.
And if anyone needs any information, they can simply contact us. We're more than happy to give them the files and the information today.
And the last thing I'll add is we do have the online mapping tool on our project website, as Rebecca mentioned earlier. So please go on there and take advantage of that. You can zoom in to the specific alignments. You can drop a pin and give us really detailed comments that will help us as we move forward into phase 2.